Good evening, everybody. Today is the 29th of April. Welcome to Voices of British Orthodoxy. I am, of course, Frida Azar. Today we have multiple saints. Our first entry is Saint Dictinus, and he is from the 5th century. Saint Patrick's first convert in Ireland. Saint Patrick is obviously celebrated on the 17th of March. Saint Dictinus was the son of an Irish chieftain and a swineherd in his youth. He gave Saint Patrick the land at Seoul for his first church. The group chat entry says Saint Dictinus, the first convert of Patrick in Ulster in Ireland, bracket 5th century. Oh, sorry. And I will give you 5 seconds to read this because I forgot to bring this up, which is obviously my bad. Our next entry, I guess, is Saint Senan, who is from the 7th century. Saint Senan was a hermit in northern Wales, about whom there is no information extant. And the group chat entry just says Saint Senan of North Wales, bracket, hermit, comma, hermit, and then in brackets 7th century. The next entry for today is Saint Firechan, also known as Firechine, and he is from the 7th century. Saint Firechan was a monk under Saint Carthage the Younger, bracket 14th of May, at the famous Lismore Abbey in County Waterford. He is especially remembered for his obedience and gift of pet prayer. The group chat entry says Saint Firechan of Lismore, brackets, Firechina, Firechne, Firechine, a monk at Lismore and a disciple of Saint Carthage the Younger. Right. The next entry for today is Saint Wilfrid the Younger, and Wilfrid the Younger, 8th century, and he is from the 8th century. After receiving his education at Whitby under St. Hilda, bracket 17th of November, St. Wilfrid attached himself to St. John of Beverley, who is commemorated on the 7th of May. He later succeeded St. John of Beverley as the last bishop of York, as the see was elevated to an archbishopric during the time of his successor. St. Wilfrid resigned the see in AD 732, retiring to Ripon until his repose in AD 744. He was buried at Ripon, though it is possible his relics were later translated to Canterbury, in the mistaken belief they were those of his more famous namesake, who is commemorated on the 12th of November. The group chat entry says Saint Wilfrid, 2nd Bishop of York, bracket 744 AD. Wilfrid was a monk at Whitby and studied there with Hilda as abbess. In 718 he was consecrated as coadjutor bishop to St. John of Beverley. Wilfrid was described as a very holy man and interested in education. He significantly embellished York Minster with gold and silver liturgical vessels. Right. So before we do get our final entry up, I do want to see if there is anything bonus-wise on the thingy. Because, as you know, right, we got to go all the way back to the 29th of April. Yeah, okay. Our final entry does actually have a thingy, so it is a good thing that I did choose to pursue. Right. Our final entry is for Saint Endellion, virgin, who is a virgin and a nun, and she is potentially from the 6th century. In the book it says 6th century with a question mark after it. Saint Endellion was one of the daughters of Saint Bruhan of Bruheniog, 6th of April, and a sister of Saint Nectan, 17th of June. According to legend, she was the goddaughter of King Arthur. Saint Endellion lived as an anchorite in Cornwall and is commemorated by the church and village of St. Endellion in North Cornwall, England. we'll also have an extra group chat entry. So the first group chat entry, which has been the one that I've read the rest of the entries from, is Saint Endelienta, nun and recluse of Cornwall, bracket 6th century. She is believed to be a daughter of the Welsh king Bruhan, and a native of South Wales who travelled to North Cornwall to join her siblings in converting the locals to Christianity. Legend says that she was a goddaughter of King Arthur and that she lives as a hermit at Trentini, where she subsisted on the milk of a cow. The cow was killed by the Lord of Trentini after straying onto his land. He is said to have been killed by Endelienta's godfather, reputed to be King Arthur, after Arthur was angered by the deed and sent his men to exact revenge. However, Endelienta was said to be unhappy that Trentini had been killed in her name and restored the nobleman back to life. Following a vision of her death, the saint is said to have asked that upon her death, her body should be placed on a sledge or cart drawn by bullocks, and that she should be buried at the place where they stop. She is thought to have died in April sometime in the 6th century, and possibly at the hands of Saxon pirates. She was buried at the top of a hill, on a church built over a grave. Her sister, Saint Dillick, bracket whose church is at Landulf, settled nearby, and the two would often meet along a certain path, whose grass would ever afterwards grow greener than elsewhere. So I do have a bonus entry for you all, which also does come with a icon. Unfortunately, I can't actually save and whatever. But right, St. Endellion, non-recluse of Cornwall, April 29th, bracket old calendar, and then it obviously includes May 12th. Today we commemorate St. Endellion, non-recluse of Cornwall on. Saint Endelienta, bracket Endellion, is a 5th-6th century Cornish pre-schism Orthodox saint and non-recluse, celebrated on April 29th for her austere life and missionary work. A daughter of King Bruhan, she helped spread Christianity in North Cornwall, living as a hermit near Trefny, and is traditionally associated with a holy well, a pet cow, and a miraculous resurrection. And then it says background. She was one of the many children of Bruhan, a Welsh king, and travelled to North Cornwall to join her brother, Saint Nectan, in evangelising the region. She settled at Trentini, living an extremely ascetic life and subsisting on the milk of a cow. I'm trying to remember. I'm pretty. It doesn't include it here, but I'm pretty sure overall he had 24 sons and daughters, and they're all saints. And then he's also got grandchildren saints and a couple of in-laws as his saints, son/daughter-in-laws as his saints as well. Anyway, she is believed to have died a martyr, perhaps at the hand of Saxon pirates, on April 29th. Following a request, her body was placed on a cart drawn by unguided bullocks. She was buried where they stopped, which is where the present St. Endellion church now stands. She is honoured as a pre-schism saint within the Orthodox tradition and is associated with holy wells. Her name is commemorated in the village of St. Endellion, and her feast day is celebrated on April the 29th. Right, as mentioned before, she does have some Troparion Kontakion, so April, so we've got the tone 5-1 here. Oh Holy Endellion, also known as Plague of First Tone or Plague of First Mode, depending on what you prefer. O holy Endelienta, when thy cow, thine only source of substance, was cruelly killed, thy heart was filled with forgiveness for the slaughterer. Pray to Christ our God, that he may forgive our enemies and find ourselves, and us, that we may ever forgive our enemies and ourselves find mercy. There we go. And, well, it wouldn't be the Saints of the Isles substack if the thingy wasn't in, if the Troparion wasn't in tone 4, with the Kontakion following up in tone 3. Having consecrated thyself wholly to Christ, O Virgin Endellion, thou didst shine forth in purity, and, becoming a dwelling of divine grace, thou wast received as a light in thy land. Entreat him to grant us great mercy. And then the Kontakion is turned free. Loving Christ with all thy heart, O blessed one, thou didst follow him in purity and prayer, and being filled with thy divine grace, thou didst shine forth in holiness, wherefore we honour thee. May these saints intercede for us before the righteous judge. I have been Reader Lazar. God bless you all, and